So with squash, there's a couple different things we need to talk about here. For one thing, you notice these plants are really old. So I really like to seed squash at least once a month, and that way we're working with younger plants, which are easier to harvest, a lot less thrashing. They're smaller, and you get better yield because you're not fighting, usually bugs and that sort of thing. So again, on that thing is to make sure your plantings of squash are a little bit further apart, so your bugs are not going to travel from one planting to the next as the season progresses. For utensils to use, I really prefer a small knife, and I'll do the same thing with this, is I'll just put it on a string so it hangs from my wrist. And with squash, you don't necessarily need a knife, but with zucchini, you definitely do, because if you twist off a zucchini from this style of plant, you'll sometimes break the zucchini. For container to harvest with, 5-gallon buckets work good. I also like the orange fish baskets as well, because they have a bigger handle, and you can just grab that handle and kind of drag it as you go down the row instead of having to actually pick this up. So let's go ahead and I'll show you the technique for harvesting. So what I've found for size of squash here for harvesting is this, like 6 to 8 inches is the preferred size. They're super tender, and you can usually get a really good price for them at the market. Another thing to think about when you're harvesting is actually using cotton gloves, and that helps you not scratch it with your fingernails. So you'll notice sometimes you get these indents in your squash and not know how it happened. Normally it's from your fingernails. So normally what we're doing is just taking the knife, cutting right there, twisting away, and then just set it right in our bin. We want to be careful too that we don't run into the spines on these here. So you can see, like, to cut that and then just kind of carefully lift that out of there. And the goal is not to cut the leaves off. But there you go. Those are a good size. So again, kind of the length of this knife, and then just very gently set them in the container so that they don't scratch each other. So another thing with the maximum ease of harvesting squash is I sometimes will actually skip a bed or plant a quick crop between a squash crop. And that way, so that after that quick crop comes out, you can put ground cloth down or landscape fabric and have a really easy avenue for harvesting through there. Because one of the things I see people struggle with is moving through a big heavy canopy of squash, or breaking the squash plants and actually reducing the yield because you're trying to thrash your way through there. So being able to have that room around your squash can be a challenge, especially in a really narrow, like a 4-foot section.